What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Stefan, and tonight I'm going to be talking about and celebrating the birthday of the historical, multi-talented, greatest, influential, disputed, and greatest Godfather of soul. So sit back and enjoy yourself on this musical and birthday celebration throughout the video. Please don't forget to like, share, and comment on the video. Subscribe to my channel if you're new. Welcome back to the channel if you're a returning subscriber. Also, don't forget to turn on your notifications for new video. So here we go again. Happy heavenly birthday to the influential, incredible, multi-talented, beloved, historical, greatest, and soulful Godfather of soul. When it comes to James Brown, the name is all you need. He is soul brother number one, the Godfather of soul, Mr. Dynamite, and then some. He's also the undisputed forefather of soul, funk, and rap, and a performer like no other. James Brown worked his way to the top of the funk and R&B music, earning the moniker the Godfather of soul. His unique vocal and musical style influenced so many artists. James Brown is also known for his personal life as well as social life, both in his songwriting, America Is My Home, Black and Proud, advocating the benefits of education to school children. A prolific singer, songwriter, and band leader as well as one of the iconic figures in funk and soul music. James Brown began his career as a gospel singer in Toccoa, Georgia. He first came to the national public attention in the mid-1950s as a lead singer of the famous Flames, a rhythm and blues vocal group founded by the late great Bobby Byrd. With the ballads, hit ballads, Please, 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 and Try Me, James Brown built a reputation of a dynamic live performer with the famous Flames and his backing band, sometimes known as the James Brown Band or the James Brown Orchestra. His success peaked in the 1960s with the live album Live at the Apollo and hit singles such as Papa Got a Brand New Bag, I Got You, I Feel Good, and It's a Man's World. During the late 1960s, James Brown moved from a curriculum of blues and gospel-based forms and styles to profound Africanized approach to music making, emphasizing stripped down interlocking rhythms that influenced the development of funk music. In the early 1970s, James Brown has fully established the funk sound after the formation of the JBs with records such as Get Up, I Feel Like a Sex Machine, and the Payback. He also became noted for songs of social commentary, including the 1968 hit Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. Mr. Brown continued to perform and record until his death in 2006. There is no denying that James Brown was the most funkiest and soulful brother to ever bless the world with his presence, and did it his way. By the time he was in his 30s, James Brown was more than a dominant music voice. He was an outstanding African American personality, period. Important enough to be drawn into the murky waters of national politics as an inspired an inspiration and role model, but also, he was also feared and sometimes ridiculed. But he would be not denied. Born on May 3rd, 1933, James Joseph Brown was destined for greatness. His gorgeous and historical music can be recognized from all around the world. He had countless songs hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and introduced in the rhythm and blues, rock and roll, and songwriter Hall of Fame. He continued to write and perform all the way until his death at age 73 on Christmas Day of 2006. What a man. Soul Brother #1, Godfather of Soul, Mr. Dynamite, Sex Machine, the minister of the new super heavy funk. These are some of the names by which the world would eventually know James Joseph Brown Jr., the legendary musical figure who was born on May 3rd, 1933, in Barnwell, South Carolina, a few miles from the Georgia border. They later moved to Augusta, Georgia. When James was 4 and 5, he was sent to live with his Aunt Honey, the madam of a brothel. Aunt Honey will play something as a maternal role for James. The fact that she ran a whorehouse and sold moonshine for a living made anything but a traditional upbringing. His mother left the family when he was young after an abusive marriage and moved to New York. After growing up in poverty during the Great Depression, a young James Brown worked whatever odd jobs he could find for little pennies. He danced for the soldiers nearby, Fort Gordon, picked cotton, watched cars, and shined shoes. He later recalled his impoverished childhood. I started shining shoes at 3 cents. Then it went up to 5 cents and 6 cents. I never did get up to a dime. I was 9 years old before I got a pair of underwear from a real store. All my clothes were made from sacks and things like that. But I knew how to make it. I had determination to go on and my determination to be somebody. He began singing in talent shows, first appearing in Augusta's Lenox Theater in 1944, winning the show after singing the ballad So Long. While in Augusta, James Brown performed buck dances for change to entertain troops from Camp Gordon at the start of World War II. As a convoy traveled over a bridge near his own home, he learned how to play the piano, guitar, and harmonica during this period. He inspired to become an entertainer after hearing Cornelia by the late great Louis Jordan. In his teen years, he briefly had a career as a boxer. He turned to working his very odd jobs full time as an escape from the harsh reality of growing up black during the original South during the Great Depression. James Brown turned to religion and music. He sang in the church choir where he developed his powerful and unique emotional sound. As a teenager, James Brown also turned to crime. At the age of 16, he was arrested for stealing a car and stealing clothes from unlocked cars and sentenced to 8 to 16 years in prison, which was a harsh sentence. While incarcerated, James Brown organized and led a prison gospel choir, an experience that might have broken another man. However, instead inspiring him to dedicate himself to music. He did his first gospel singing while in prison, where he earned the nickname Music Box, impressed his Warren and the Georgia State Parole Board enough with his seriousness of purpose to win his release after 3 years. At the age of 19, highly motivated, worldly, and fiercely talented, James Brown walked out of prison and began his climb to music greatness. While in jail, James Brown met Bobby Byrd, an aspiring R&B singer and pianist, forming a friendship and partnership that proved one of the most fruitful in music history. In 1952, he wrote a letter to the Georgia State Parole Board pleading for early release so he could devote himself to singing gospel. On his release, he did sing gospel briefly with Sarah Byrd, but soon found himself touring with Sarah's brother, Bobby Byrd, who would spend the next 30 years as his right-hand man and best friend. Always a gifted athlete, upon his release in prison in 1953, James Brown turned his attention to sports and devoted the next 2 years to primarily boxing and playing semi-professional baseball. Then, however, Mr. Byrd invited James to join his group, the Gospel Highlighters. James Brown accepted. With his overbearing talent and showmanship, he quickly came to dominate the group. Renaming the famous Flames, they moved to Macon, Georgia, where they perform in local nightclubs. In 1956, the famous Flames recorded a demo tape of the song Please, Please, Please and played it for Ralph Bass, a talent scout for King Records. He was impressed by the song and especially impressed by his passionate and soulful crooning. He offered the group a record contract within months. Please, Please, Please release had reached number 6 on the R&B charts. The song became the group's first R&B hit, selling over 1 million copies. None of the follow-ups after the single gained similar success. The Flames immediately hit the road, touring the Southeast while opening for legendary musicians such as B.B. King, Ray Charles. But the band didn't have a repeat to match the hit of the success Please, Please, Please. By the end of 1957, the Flames returned home, much of a needing creative spark in danger of losing his record deal. In 1958, James Brown moved to New York, where working with different musicians who he called the Flames, he recorded the song Try Me. The song reached number 1 on the R&B charts and cracked the Hot 100 singles and kick-started his music career. He soon followed with a string of hits included Lost Someone, Night Train, and Prisoner Love, his first song to crack the top 10 at the pop charts, peaking at number 2. In October of 1958, he released the ballad Try Me, which hit number 1 on the R&B charts in the beginning of 1959, becoming the first of his 17 chart-topping R&B hits. Shortly afterwards, he recruited his first band led by J.C. Davis and reunited with Bobby Byrd, who joined and revived famous Flame lineup that included Eugene Baby, Lloyd Stallworth, and Bobby Bennett, and Johnny Terry sometimes come in as the fifth Flame. James Brown, the Flames, and his entire band debuted at the Apollo Theater on April 24th, 1959, opening for his idol, Little Willie John. In addition to writing and recording music, he toured relentlessly. He performed 5 or 6 nights a week throughout the 1950s and 60s, a schedule that earned him the title the hardest working man in show business. James Brown was a flashy showman, an incredible dancer, and a soulful singer. His concerts were hypnotic displays of exuberance and passion that left audience in raptures. His saxophonist Pee Wee Ellis once said, when you heard James Brown coming to town, you stopped what you were doing and you started saving your money. In 1962, James Brown and his band scored a hit with their cover of the instrumental Night Train, becoming a top 5 R&B hit. The same year, the ballads Lost Someone and Baby You're Right, a Joe Tex composition, added to his repertoire and increased his reputation with R&B artisans. On October 24, 1962, Mr. Brown financed a live recording of a performance at the Apollo and convinced Sid Nathan to release the album, despite his belief that no one buys a live album due to the fact that Mr. Brown singles already been bought and live albums were bad singles. Well, James Brown proved him wrong. Live at the Apollo proved his greatest commercial success yet, peeping at number 2 on the pop album charts and firmly establishing his crossover appeal. Live at the Apollo was released and immediately became a hit, eventually reaching number 2 on the top LB chart, selling over 1 million copies, singing on the charts for 14 months, becoming the greatest live album ever. In 1963, James Brown scored his first top 20 hit with his rendition of the standard Prisoner Love. He also launched his first label, Try Me Records. During this time, he began an ill-fated 2-year relationship with 17-year-old Tammy Terrell, where she sang in his band. Tammy Terrell ended their personal and professional relationship because of his abusive behavior. When it came to the latest dances, Mr. Brown always came on top. He mastered and performed whatever dances that were popular at the time. The camel walk, the mashed potato, the popcorn, and then also advising on his own after announcing that he was about to do the James Brown, a shrewd and ruthless band leader and businessman. James Brown scheduled his tours to hit money towns on the weekends and demanded perfection from his backup singers and musicians. He infamously fined musicians for missing notes, and during performances where he called out musicians to advise on the spot. One of his musicians said, with considerate understatement, "You have to think quick to keep up." He also went on to record many of his most popular and enduring hits during the mid-1960s, including I Got You, I Feel Good, Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, It's a Man's World. With its unique rhythm quality achieved by ducting each instrument to its essentially percussion role. Papa's Got a Brand New Bag is considered the first song of a new genre called funk, a offshoot of soul and a precursor of hip hop. Having to sign a new deal with King, he released his song Papa's Got a Brand New Bag in 1965, which became his first top 10 pop hit and won him his first Grammy. Later in 1965, he issued I Got You, which became his second single in a row to reach number one on the R&B charts and top 10 on the pop charts. Mr. James Brown followed that up with the ballad It's a Man's World, his third top 10 pop hit and number one on the R&B, which confirmed his stance as a top-ranking performer, especially with R&B artists from that point on. His main social life was in preserving the need for education among youth, influenced by his own troubled childhood and his being forced to drop out of 11th grade for wearing insignificant clothes. In the mid-1960s, James Brown also began devoting more time and more energy to social causes. In 1966, he recorded Don't Be a Dropout, a dedicated and impassioned plea to the black community to place more focus on education. Royalties of the song was donated to Dropout Prevent charity programs. The success of this song led to him meeting with President Lyndon B. Johnson city James Brown for being a positive role model for the youth. On April 5th, 1968, the day after Martin Luther King Jr. assassination, with riots raging across the country, James Brown gave a rare televised live performance in Boston, an attempt to prevent rioting there. His efforts succeeded. Young Bostonians stayed home to watch the concert on TV, and the city largely avoided violence. A few months later, he wrote and recorded Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, a protest anthem that unified and inspired generations. Although he performed at rallies for civil rights organizations and in the mid-1960s, he often shied away from discussing civil rights in his songs in fear of leaving out his crossover audience. In 1968, in response to a growing urge of anti-war advocacy during the Vietnam War, Mr. Brown recorded the song America Is My Home, and a song where he performed a rap talking about patriotism and exhorting listeners to stop pitying yourself and get up and fight. At the time of the song release, he'd been participating in performing for troops stationed in Vietnam. In 1969, he recorded two more songs of social commentary, World and I Don't Want Nobody to Give Me Nothing. The latter song plead for equal opportunity and self-reliance rather than self-entitlement. In 1970, in response to some of the black leaders not for not being outspoken enough. He recorded Get Up, Get Into It, Get Involved, and Talking Loud and Saying Nothing. He began in 1971. He began touring Africa. He was made Freeman of the City in Nigeria for his influence on black people all over the world. With his company, James Brown Enterprises, he helped provide jobs for blacks in business and the community. As the 1970s continued, he continued to record songs of social commentary, most primarily the 1972 King Heroin and the two-part ballad Public Enemy, which deal with drug addiction. During the 1968 presidential campaign, he endorsed Democratic presidential candidate Herbert Hemray and appeared in Humphrey at political rallies. He was labeled an Uncle Tom for supporting him, and also for releasing the pro-American funk song "America Is My Home," where he had lambasted protesters of the Vietnam War and as well as the politics of pro-black activists. He began supporting Republican President Richard Nixon after being invited to perform Nixon's inaugural ball in January 1969. His endorsement of Nixon during the 1972 presidential election negatively impacted his career during that period, with several national black organizations boycotting his records and protesting at his concert shows. A November 1972 show in Cincinnati was picketed with signs saying "James Brown, Nixon Clown." He initially performed at a youth center concert following his inauguration in January in 1973, but bailed out during the backlash he suffered from supporting Nixon. James Brown joined fellow black entertainer Sammy Davis Jr., who faced similar backlash, to back out of the concert. During his incredible career that lasted more than 7 decades, he also had the most incredible and amazing multi-talented collection of talented musicians such as the JBs, Bobby Byrd, Lynn Collins, Vicky Anderson, Marvin Whitney, saxophonist Maceo Parker, Sinclair Pickett, and Pee Wee Ellis, guitarist Jimmy Nolan, the Collins brothers, Philip and Bootsy, bassist Tweet Jones, Sherelle, and drummer Clyde Stubblefield are all funk and soul giants, and all shared some degree for the credit for his sound. They were the men that James Brown could count on to take it to the bridge when he asked them to, and never sooner. His music empire expanded along with his influence on the music scene. As his music empire grew, his desire for financial and artistic independence grew as well. He bought radio stations during the late 1960s, including WRDW in his native Augusta, where he shined shoes as a boy. In 1967, he purchased radio station WGYW in Knoxville, Tennessee for a report of 75,000. According to the January 20th, 1968 record World Magazine. The call letters were changed to WJBE, reflecting his initials. WJBE began on January 15, 1968, and broadcasted a rhythm and blues format. The label, the station slogan, WJBE 1430 Raw Soul. He also bought Webb in Baltimore in 1970. It was around this time that his popularity increased, and he required the nickname Soul Brother Number One after failing to win the title King of Soul from Solomon Burke during a Chicago gig 2 years prior. In March of 1970, most of his mid to late 1960 road band walked out on him due to money disputes, a development argued by the previous disband of the famous Flame singing group for the same reason in 1968. James Brown and Bobby Byrd, who chose to remain in the band during this period, significantly recruited several band members of the Cincinnati base, the Pacemakers, which included Bootsy Collins and his brother Phillips Catfish Collins. Argument by the remaining members of the 1960 road band, including Fred Wesley, who rejoined the band in December 1970, and other newer musicians. They will form the nucleus of the JBs with other new musicians. Shortly following their first performance together, the band entered the studio to record the Brown/Byrd composition Get Up, I Feel Like a Sex Machine. The song and other singles will further cement his influence in the genre of funk music. During the 1972 presidential election, he openly proclaimed his support for Richard Nixon for re-election for presidential election. This decision led to a boycott to his performances and according to him, cost him a big portion of his black audience. As a result, his record sales and concerts in the United States reached a dull in 1973 when he failed to land a number one R&B single that year. Also that year, he faced problems with the IRS for failure to pay back taxes, charging that he hasn't paid upward of $4.5 million earlier. The IRS claimed that he owed nearly $2 million. In 1973, he provided the score for the blaxploitation film Black Caesar. In 1974, he returned to the number one spot on the R&B charts with the Payback, with the parented album reaching the same spot. On the album charts, he will reach number one two more times with My Thing and Papa Take No Mess. Papa Take No Mess would prove to be his final single to reach number one on the spot of the R&B charts, and his final top 40 pop single. Among his top R&B hits during this latter period included Funky Drama, which climbed to number 4 on the R&B charts, and Get Up Off That Thing, which climbed to number 4 on the R&B charts. Throughout the 70s, he continued to perform ceaselessly and recorded several more hits, notably Sex Machine and Get Up Off That Thing, although his career fell off during the late 70s due to financial troubles and the rise of disco. James Brown made an inspiring comeback with a multi-faced performance in the classic 1980s film The Blue Brothers. His 1985 song Living in America, which predominantly was featured in Rocky, was his biggest hits in decades. The single marking his first top 40 entry since 1974 and his first top 10 pop entry since 1968. Produced and written by Dan Hartman, it was featured on the film and the soundtrack. He performed the song in the film at Apollo's Creed Final Fight, which was shot in the MGM Grand in Las Vegas and was credited in the film as the Godfather of Soul. In 1987, James Brown won the Grammy for Best Male R&B Vocal Performance for Living in America. In 1988, he worked with the production team for Force on a new Jack Swing influence, I'm Real. Upon his final two top 10 R&B hits, I'm Real and Static, which peaked at number 2 and number 5 respectively. However, after becoming one of the first musicians inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986, the year of its inspection, in the late 1980s, he slowly slid into a minor drug addiction and depression. More numerous arrests followed in different situations. The root of his personal troubles came in 1988 when he entered a seminar high on PCP, bearing a shotgun, leaving police on a half-hour high-speed chase from Augusta, Georgia into South Carolina. The police had to shoot out his tires to end the chase. The incident led him spending 15 months in jail before being released on parole in 1991. Re-emerging from prison rehab, he returned to touring, once again delivering inspired and energetic concert on a concert much reduced from his heyday. There have been numerous arrests on different occasions also. He had another run-in with the law in 1998, where after he discharged a rifle and led the police on another car chase. After the incident, he was sentenced to a 90-day drug rehab program. In the 2000s, he continued to perform and stay okay from the public. However, His personal life was marred by repeated assault and violent incidents. He was married 4 times over the course of his life and had numerous children. On Christmas Day 2006, James Brown passed away from heart failure. After his passing, his relatives, a host of celebrities, and thousands of fans gathered on December 28, 2006 for a public service at the Apollo Theater in New York City. And on December 30th, 2006, at the James Brown area in Augusta, Georgia, a separate private ceremony was held in North Augusta, South Carolina. On December 29th, 2006, with his family in attendance, his body was placed in a golden casket, bond polished to a golden shine, driven throughout the streets of New York to the Apollo Theater in a white glass cased horse-drawn carriage. In Augusta, Georgia, his memorial process stopped to pay respect at his statue en route to the area. During the public memorial day, a video showed his last performance in Augusta, Georgia, with the Ray Charles version of Georgia on My Mind playing soulfully in the background. Numerous celebrities attended his funeral, including Michael Jackson, who always credited Mr. Brown as his main childhood musical hero. Not only James Brown is the disputed godfather of soul and the man who put funk on the map, he's widely regarded as the godfather of hip hop. Throughout the much of the 1950s and 60s, this singer, songwriter, dancing machine performed no less than 5 nights a week, rightfully earning him the title the hardest working man in show business. He's unquestionably one of the most influential musical pioneers in the last 70 years. The Godfather of Soul, the inventor of funk, and the godfather of hip hop, paved the way for so many artists of different genres in music. He paved the way for so many multi-talented and greatest musical geniuses such as Michael Jackson, Prince, Usher, Bruno Mars, etc., etc. He also is the most sampled musical artist in history. When you listen to some of your favorite rap songs, he's on it from the sample and the beat. Happy heavenly birthday to the Godfather of Soul, and continue rest peacefully in God's kingdom. Like I always say, let's always celebrate our legends while they are still alive. Always give them their flowers, their respect, and acknowledgement. Thank you for enjoying this musical ride with me throughout the video. Please don't forget to like, share, and comment on the video. Subscribe to my channel. Also, don't forget to turn on your notifications for new videos. Stay safe and blessed always. Have a good night. I'm out. Peace.